Welcome back to another video. This is gonna be just about Barcelona versus Madrid, and yeah, this is basically game over for the title race. I think that Madrid are out of it now for sure because it's a 7 point gap. Yes, there are about 3 games left apiece for each Barcelona and Real Madrid, but it looked completely over. Looking at the game itself, finishing 4-3, it looked like the Kylian Mbappe show in the first about 14 minutes. Madrid were playing well, they were creating chances. Mbappe's first goal was interesting because he was offside, but then it did deflect off of Kurbasi and it fell into his path, and he was able to then try to take it around the keeper, but he was then taken down by the goalkeeper Chesney, which resulted in a penalty call and him slotting it into the bottom left. Now the second goal was very interesting because it's just a clear-cut goal. Vinicius to play to Mbappe and goal. Now Eric Garcia was assisted by Ferran, so it was from a corner kick. Gets lofted in. Ferran flicks it. Garcia nods it back home. And then Lamin's, tying goal is just absolutely beautiful. Ferran lays it off to Lamin, and then he just wraps it with his left foot into the bottom left. An outstretched Courtois couldn't even touch it. This kid is special. I have to be honest, guys. Like, watching Lamine Yamal these past, 2-3 weeks, it's like he wants to be a part of this conversation at the top of football. He knows he is a part of that discussion, and so he gives performances week in, week out that you have to agree he is one of the best players we have ever seen, especially for his age, guys. He's still 18, right? He's yet to turn 19. He's already got 100 games under his belt. So, moving forward, this Barcelona team have a bright future. And then Rafinha finishes a beautiful pass from Pedri into his path, and then slots it into the bottom right. And it looked interesting because there was a penalty called for Real Madrid, but then it ended up going to VAR and then getting canceled. But again, I will always say this until they manage to implement a system that actually gives the fans a better understanding of what these decisions are, because later on in the video there were 2 moments in which VAR ended up intervening in the game and reversing decisions that we thought were going to become penalties or goals. So we'll come back to that again. And then Ferran Torres, that fourth goal is sloppy play from Madrid, and this is something we have seen. It's been a constant. Their defensive back line is just, it doesn't look right. It was a sloppy ball from Guler, comes to Lucas Vasquez, who for some reason is in the center back position, and he doesn't get it under control. He's pressed by Rafinha. It then gets to Ferran Torres. Ferran Torres lays it back to Rafinha, and he calmly slots it for the fourth. They ended up turning a 2-0, looked like a great first 14 for Madrid, into a 4-2 by halftime. And it's interesting because even with the fourth goal going in, Lamine played an amazing Travella. And I'm saying this boy has this pass on lock. Like, his passing is probably the most impressive part of his football, because there was later in the game where they had another chance that Lamine created for Rafinha at the back post, and it's basically carbon copy. He's on the right side, and then he whips a perfect Trivela to the back post. Rafinha, he couldn't nod it home, right? It was a header. He ends up getting it over the bar. The second time Lamine did it, he passes it again, and it's even in a better position this time. It's right at his feet, but then he ends up, missing the goal entirely. So a part of his game that people don't give him enough credit for is his passing. He makes the game easy for everyone, right? He is so skilled at reading defenses and realizing where the space is, and he wants to kill teams. He wants to finish them off. He doesn't want them to have a fighting chance. I'll be real, man. That was a cool celebration for him. He scored a beautiful goal. He told them, I'm here. Calm down. I'm here. That's beautiful to see. The game is really coming back. And then Kylian Mbappe in the second half ended up getting a goal assisted by Vinicius. Right, the offside line, I've said it before, again, if you perfectly time your runs, it's hard for the defense to be able to really adjust. They can't really stop you if you've already committed to the, offside line. All you have to do is just time your run and you're right in, and you have, a good 30 to 40 meters before you even get to the goalkeeper where you can take your time. And if you have a, someone up with you, you can just pass it back to him. And it happened to them in the Champions League with Inter Milan, where DeMarco had played it to Dumfries. He just waited for a couple seconds, then made the run. Then he's in behind. Then he plays it to Lautaro, and then they end up scoring. And, it's interesting because, yes, the offside line is very important. It's been used against the top teams in Europe. It's worked. But once a team understands how to actually exploit it, that's when it becomes a threat against Barcelona. Because if a team is patient in their runs, they can exploit this with effective, they can dominate the game. If they just keep their runs delayed for an extra second, because that back line literally stops because they want you to move offside. But if you just be patient, wait for the ball, and the person who's passing the ball must make sure it's at the right weight, because most times with an offside line, your immediate, instinct is to play it in behind with a firm type of hit. You want them to get right to the goal instantaneously. But if you kind of just, play it with a little bit more precision, right into their feet, right into their stride, it's difficult for the back line and the keeper to be able to make that distance in that situation harder for the attacker, right? And that's what ended up happening in this goal. And that's why Kylian Mbappe ended up slotting it. Now, I will say this. Did Tchouaméni handle the ball? You could say that it's a handball, but because of the distance, because he's so close to the ball, I don't think you should be calling these. I don't think that should be a handball. Now, I'm remembering an instant as a Manchester United fan. We played Bayern Munich at the Allianz Arena. There was a penalty that was called against us where Christian Eriksen had his hand up, but the play was so close to one another. Like, it was so close that for me, it shouldn't be called a handball, because you're virtually right next to the person who is, quote unquote, handling the ball, and now they give it a penalty. So today I was saying to myself, they might call this a penalty. They might actually give it a penalty. And as soon as I saw the ref look down and call, I was like, hold on. If they give a penalty, this is interesting, because then that sets a precedent. He actually understands that is too harsh of a penalty to give in any circumstance. It's just too harsh. You're so close to the ball, you have virtually no time to react, and there's nothing you can do to get out of the way, right? So if his hand was out like this, I think that's different. But I think because his hand is out like this, it's a little bit more of a harder call to make. But again, for me, it's the distance. It's not even about really. Again, if his hand was completely out, not even, close to his body, it's just out here like the Lewis Skelly one against Arsenal with PSG in the Champions League. His hand was out, stretched out. That's a penalty, because you can't necessarily say that he didn't mean to. He didn't. The hand is in a completely unnatural position. That is a clear penalty. So this one, I will say it's a good call. But I found it interesting because Fermin Lopez, with the 90th minute goal that he ended up scoring, it ended up getting chalked off because he handled the ball in the play. It gets popped up because Valverde and him are going for the ball. It pops up, it hits his hand, and then he regains possession of the ball. Is that really a handball? Like, I don't think that should have been called a handball. But again, because they set that precedent, because I think if that was called a penalty before, if it was given a penalty, I don't think they would have chalked this goal off. I don't think so. Because they would have had to keep it going with the precedent that they had set. But I will say this. Now that we see Barcelona are clearly ahead in the league, league race, it's virtually game over. It would take a miracle for Barcelona to end up choking these next three that they got, because they do have a couple tough opposition. I have to be honest. Espanyol, they're not going to be a walk in the park. Villarreal, they're not going to be a walk in the park. And especially Athletic Club, on the final day of the league, that's not going to be an easy fixture. Now, looking at Madrid's last three, they will be playing Mallorca. I think that they should win. Sevilla, which is going to be interesting, and then Real Sociedad, which is as well. It's not an easy game. These are very difficult games. They're not going to just simply go in there and expect to win. But I think that Madrid will end up winning. But it would take Barcelona to lose the next two, Madrid to get the next two, to end up even getting between 1 point between Barcelona and Real Madrid. I don't think Barca's choking that hard. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they understand that they're going to get the domestic treble. I think because they got knocked out of the Champions League semifinal, their focus is on the league now. Hansi Flick understands that, and so all hands are on deck for this league title. I think Barcelona deserve it. I think that they have been far better equipped dealing with this year's talent pool in La Liga. They're by far the best team in the Spanish league, and Madrid, with all their issues, they put up a good fight, but it's just not enough. I think next season they got to go back to the drawing boards. Let's see what happens with Ancelotti. I believe Xavi Alonso will end up being the next head coach. Now Trent Alexander-Arnold will be coming in. It's going to be interesting because who are they going to get with Rudiger in the back line, right? Are they going to go out and get Alphonso Davies? But now he has that ACL injury. That's going to be very interesting to look out for, right? But they definitely need another center back. I think they need to bring in another midfielder. And they got to find something to do with that attacking line. I don't think Mbappe is a striker. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him and Vinicius, because I think there might be a tough call to make. Do you let go of Vinicius Jr. to keep Mbappe? And I'm going to be honest with you. If you ask me, I think you let go of Vinicius Jr. I think you keep Mbappe on this team and put him on the left and go and get someone like Gyökeres, right? Go and get someone like Victor Osimhen. Get someone who is a prolific goal-scoring threat. Maybe Alexander Isak, right? Who can, complement this attacking side of Real Madrid. But as well, it's also about Barcelona to make some acquisitions, especially with goalkeeper. Let's see. Szczesny is probably going to stay. Well, let's see. Ter Stegen is going to be back healthy. I think all they need to bring in is a striker. I think Ferran Torres is a great backup striker. Lewandowski is getting up there in age. So I think it's the same for Barcelona. Get someone up there to basically feed off of Lamine Yamal and Rafinha, because these guys are going to give whoever they play with, especially if they're young, they're quick, they can get in behind. And the player that I'm thinking of most right now is Luis Openda. It seems like an interesting player that I'm trying to name here, but I see him, to fit with this team perfectly. He would be the perfect match to someone like Lamine Yamal. He would give you guys something to look at, because when I first started watching Luis Openda, I saw him at Lens when he was in the French league. This guy can run. And I mean, if you give him the ball to feet and he's in behind, you can't stop him. I think that him going to RB Leipzig was a decision to kind of, progress his career, bring up his stock market. You know what I'm saying? Let more teams see how he plays in the Champions League. But I think he should have went to, Borussia Dortmund. But they ended up getting Serhou Guirassy. That's another player that these teams, Barcelona and Real Madrid, respectively, can look at to bring in. But this is going to be a very interesting last three games. But I do believe that Barcelona will end up the champions come May 25th. So thank you guys for tuning in for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And it's the Footy Sage signing out.